Here we have the dummy tang to burn in our sword handle over here. Of course, this is the blank of the tang we're making. It's not an exact facsimile, but it doesn't have to be. Just as long as it's thin enough, close, and straight, we get the right taper and the right length. That sword tang should fit right in. Longest tang I will have ever tried to burn in on anything. So let's go ahead and heat this up. And try to burn this thing in. The forge. Trying to go fairly easy on the heat with this. The tang doesn't have to be forging heat, just a blood red heat. In fact, you don't want it too hot. Remove too much material. And since we're burning this in on a hard, sort of tropical hardwood, have to be mindful of overheating that and cracking it. Stuff like walnut and birch and cherry doesn't have such a problem with that, but this tropical hardwood can. So there we go. Get that started. Get it a little bit hotter. This up a little bit. And this will be slow going, especially for such a long thing. I don't know how many heatings it'll take, but it's really quite dramatic on a smaller knife. The plume of smoke is just ridiculous. Got the shop doors open so I don't suffocate. Boy, that stuff smells bad too. Jeez. A little warmer this time. Trying to keep it as straight as possible. Fortunately, with a blank this big, if there's a little bit of cant to one side or the other, that can be easily compensated for. Shouldn't have too much because the pilot hole is nearly perfect, perfectly centered. That's some hard stuff. Normally I do this with birch or walnut, cherry, those sorts of things. I've done it with ebony and cocobolo a few times. It's about the same, but with such a long piece. Not as spectacular as I was hoping it would be for the video, but it's working. If you've got the tools to be able to bore the pilot hole and forge the tang and heat it up and all that, that is a lot simpler than trying to do some kind of joinery with a handle where you saw the thing in half and hollow out the handle with chisels and such. And I do have the grain aligned where the quarter grain, which this piece has excellent quarter grain, a bit of chatoyancy in it, which is like shimmery shininess. I've lined that up, so that's going to be on the side of the sword handle and hopefully show more. I do that with all my knife handles where applicable. Make sure our tang isn't getting bent, because as the metal is very hot, it's also soft and it will bend. So I might have to straighten it out a few times. It's going to be a fairly wide slot, but that'll get tightened up easily with all the epoxy and the pommel attachments and everything else. Let's see, let's straighten that up just a little. Yeah, I don't think we're risking cracking quite yet. It's nice that this is such a large blank. That really makes, aside from the length, that makes it a lot easier. With really small pieces of tropical hardwood, it's very easy to crack it with excessive heat. It takes more force to push that thing in as well than you would expect, especially on this hard wood. Quite an ancient method, of course. Sometimes the simplest ways work the best. All right, yeah, we're gonna give it a break. She's getting a little warm. I really don't want to damage this. So anyway, that's a little bit of a sample of how this works.